Welcome to Interior Analysis, the podcast. I am one of the hosts, Jelani Kelly.
And I'm Evan Westman, and I believe that Aang can save the world.
Oh my god.
I mean, I haven't finished the series. I don't know if he does, but I believe he will.
Alright. I mean, it's a kid's show. He has to, right? Yeah. Right.
I would be pretty shocked if he didn't. I'm pretty confident in him.
But in case you haven't guessed, your boys today are talking about Avatar The Last Airbender that has just come on Netflix. Actually, it's not. It didn't just come on. It was like a month ago. It came on Netflix. And Evan has never seen it. I have seen all the episodes, not in order, but I remember all the episodes. And we started... Well, Evan's never seen it, so I rewatched season 1. And Evan watched season 1 for the first time.
Yeah, and I have not started season 2 yet, so that's all I know. I know nothing that's coming next.
Yeah, this is a season by season thing. Yeah. So next episode of the Avatar thing will be season 2. Evan, it only gets better. Season 3 is my favorite season.
I believe it. Like I liked what I saw, but I feel like it has a lot more to offer that we haven't seen yet.
Oh, for sure. So let's get into it. What'd you think, Evan?
So before anything else is said, this has to be said first. Appa is the MVP of this show. Okay. Appa, I literally wrote that down like 6 times watching the show.
Yeah.
I know it's a team effort, but like if Appa wasn't there, like nothing is possible.
Pretty much.
You cannot make me not believe that.
He's like a car, but fluffy and able to fly. So not like a car at all.
Car is underselling him severely, in my opinion, but okay. So prior to seeing this, as you said, I didn't see it until this past month. I think someone showed me the duel between Aang and his old Earthbender friend there. I feel like someone showed that to me like 2 or 3 years ago.
Boomy? King Boomy?
I think so. It was, yeah.
The crazy
the
old
old
man.
guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure someone showed me that a few years ago. And then I know this is a little bit bad to bring up, but I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. All I knew about it otherwise was the live action one. I saw that in theaters. Haven't seen it since.
They're going to cancel you for saying that. What? Everybody's going to cancel you on Twitter, on everything, Evan.
For saying that I saw it?
No, for saying that the only version you saw was the movie version. I'm canceling you right now. You've been canceled.
I mean, it's just the truth. Like, I'm not gonna act like I hadn't seen it. That's part of, I guess, why I'm a little more excited for the next couple seasons, because I mean, there was plenty in the show that I didn't know about, but I did remember the broad strokes of like the beginning and the ending. But like, even I don't remember the movie great, but I do remember I've always thought that bending was really cool. Mm-hmm. Like, I think a couple months after seeing it, I basically carbon copied bending for one of like the only fantasy things I've ever like finished. It was
That's what I'm doing.
Really?
Yeah, one of my fantasy series, In the Wind. Well, it's a little more to it than that, but essentially people can use the elements, but they're like using the elements in specific ways where like it's not just the 4 elements, it's other stuff too, like vapor and smoke and crystals and sand. But they're infusing like their weapons with that, whatever weapon, like specialized weapon they have is like a part of them. They're infusing the elements with their weapon. So for example, somebody will have like a metal yo-yo with the metal wire, but their element is like lightning, and they can shoot the lightning through the metal wire to like tase
like
somebody.
as a conductor.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
My airbending or bending ripoff was like, it was a long time ago that I did this, but I basically ripped off earthbending almost exactly as it works. Like,
it's the coolest though.
I don't know. I'm torn on which one I like best, but I know for the thing that I made, it was basically like you could, and I didn't get that deep into it, but I think you could basically just like bring up big walls of rock from the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Was like a thing. And like the earthbender, I mean, they weren't earthbenders. I don't really remember what they were, but like they were the bad guys, I know. And then the other half was like cloud people who could like rain down lightning and
Air
toss vapor stuff. It was pretty lame, but I know it was influenced by bending. I think I had them like do the same hand wavy stuff to do it. Yeah, I don't remember it great. Also, just to finish ripping the Band-Aid off, because literally just today, like 2 hours ago, I heard a couple people talking about the live action movie and saying something about how like they were upset about how like bending worked and that how people had to do like too much hand
Oh my
wavy
god.
stuff.
There was like one scene when the Earth prison camp, even though it didn't really look like a prison because they were just out in the open, it just looked like a camp, where it was like 6 guys flailing for a good 7
that's what they were
seconds
talking about.
and then floated one rock. And it's like, yo, do you know what one Earthbender can do in the show alone? Like, it took 6 guys to float one rock gently over to a firebender? Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I have no memory of any of that, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they were talking about. Like,
Yeah.
one of them said something like, if you did all that, you would cause like an earthquake. Because
Right.
like, in context of the show.
Yeah. Also, I didn't like in the movie how firebenders needed to draw from fire like everybody needed to do for the other elements. Like water.
Yeah.
They
Is
generate
there a line
fire
at the end where some waterbender guy's like, "Oh, he's generating fire from nothing."
Yeah,
and that was
yeah.
like a big deal.
It was Iroh. Yeah, it was like they all do that in the show, and I thought it was, or I heard somewhere that it was them igniting air. So they were still using like drawing from an element technically, but that, well, actually, technically speaking, it might still be that because. There was that scene where Zuko, I just watched it actually, where Zuko was under the water and he pressed his hands up against the ice and melted the ice.
Yeah.
And then I thought, wait, there's no air in that. And then I was like, wait, there's oxygen in water, so maybe it's something to do with oxygen.
Yeah.
Like actual fire.
Just while we're talking about that, how is he not crushed by the pressure in that scene?
I
He's got a ton of water above
don't.
him. I know
And it's
cartoons
freezing.
and suspension of disbelief and all that, like, but
Yeah.
that's a ton of water pressure for someone to take.
Yeah.
But that's a little
it's
beside the
Zuko
point.
though, bro.
It's Zuko. Yeah. One very last thing, and this might be the thing that gets me canceled. I didn't mind the water Godzilla at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I did kind of want the wave from the live action movie. I was kind of waiting.
I don't remember that, but I'm not mad at that.
I think I only really remember it because I think they had it at the end of all the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
He, instead of the water Godzilla thing, I don't know if there's another name for that, but that's what I'm calling it.
Water koi fish, the giant koi fish. Spirit.
Oh, is it supposed to be a koi fish?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it looked like Godzilla.
The whole thing was about koi fish, Evan. The yin and yang things were koi fish. And
Well,
then
I
he
got
turned
that,
into
but
a
it
koi
looks-
fish.
I thought the thing at the end was Godzilla. Okay.
Evan, why would...
All right, so
Alright.
the koi fish thing.
Mhm.
I kind of wanted the wave. I thought the wave looked cool in the live action movie. But that is the only thing, just at face value, I wanted the wave.
I ain't mad at it.
I apologize if that's heresy.
Nah, you're good. I speak for them.
Okay, yeah.
You're good.
And just like, I guess that wasn't the last thing about the live action one. Like, again, not remembering like exactly what the bad things about it were, although in hindsight, I kind of...
The acting and everything else.
Yeah, as I recall, it wasn't great from like the clips I've seen since then. Like, I get why people don't like it, but I also, now that I've seen the show, I think I really not fully appreciate why people hated it so much, but like, as good as the show is, I think I would love it more if there was kind of a non-kids version of it. And you wouldn't even have to change that much, just like take away the need for the kid-friendly tone, and then it's like perfect.
Yeah, but you know all of the main cast are kids besides like Iroh, right? Zuko's like 15. Azula's 14. The person at the end that you see, that Fire Lord Ozai is like, all right, your brother failed. Like, she is 14.
Yeah, I know they're all kids, but like they've done like adult-ish versions of stories with kids in them. Like his Dark Materials, I mean that's a really new example, but like that has a lot of kids in it, and like I think they're like 10, 12, something like that. And that keeps a pretty like adult tone to it. I think it's like a TV 14 rated show, but it's not a kid show at all. I don't think it's going to happen now, but I would like to see a little bit more like mature version of this show. Not that it's bad as it is, but like,
yeah, what would an edgier adult version look like?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get that now, thanks to Shyamalan, but
there was supposed to be a Netflix adaptation. There was like a promo picture of Aang walking with Appa who was floating. And I don't know what the hell happened to it, but I'm mad I haven't seen it yet.
Wait, that's like a new thing that's happening?
That was like, there was a picture I saw like 2 years ago.
Oh, I mean, I'll keep my eye out for it, I guess.
It's supposed to be an adaptation. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. If you have anything else you want to say about the live action one, like I've said everything. I figure we don't necessarily want that to play into the rest of it.
No, we don't need to bash it. Everybody else has bashed it. It was bad.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that because like I had seen it, so that's what I knew coming in. And I know that won't apply to the next 2 seasons, so I don't think we're going to have to bring it up again.
Oh, no, because, yeah, the movie was just the first season. So, couple questions for you, was that all your reaction? Favorite character so far? Doesn't have to be part of the main cast. It could be like a one-off character if you want.
I didn't love any of the one-offs, so I would say it's probably either Katara, Zuko, or Iroh.
That's 3 characters. I actually, for one, haven't. What have you done?
I am having a hard time deciding.
You ruined the question, Evan.
All right, well, if I have to pick, I think I'm going to say Katara. Mostly because I'm really torn between her and Zuko because I like both of them a lot, but I feel like we're going to get more interesting things from Katara. I'm wondering if maybe Zuko is not going to be quite as good in the later seasons. I would love it if he is, but I'm not expecting as much from him for season 2.
Sure. I cannot say anything about either of them. Okay. Season 1 episode.
Definitely the Spirit World Part 2, where they go to the Fire Temple. Yeah.
And he speaks with Roku?
Yes. I mean, most of the episodes were pretty good. There were a couple off ones here and there, but I remember the first half of the season, like I think it kind of plateaued a little bit after that episode with the Spirit World, but prior to that, like every episode was better than the one before it, and I was like, oh my god, like that was the peak of me just being like so into it. I was like, by the time it got to that one, I was like, I'm here for just the rest of this show. I think part of it was because that was the one, I'm pretty sure, where we got the tease for like the summer solstice thing, which I guess that's gonna be the end, close to the end of season 3 is my guess.
Okay.
But also like the Spirit World was one of my favorite things about the show as a whole.
Really?
And yeah, really. I want more of that in the coming seasons. You don't have to tell me if there is more, but that was one of my favorite things about it. And also, like, I remember there being like a really, like, I only watched each one once, but I feel like that was one of the coolest, like, bringing stuff together episodes where it was like the Fire Nation showed up with like the monks, the rest of the trio was there and they did something cool. I don't remember. And then Zuko showed up and it was like everything great that the show had already introduced all coming together at once. I loved that one.
All right.
What's your favorite of this one?
Fortune Teller.
Really?
I like the volcano scene a lot where he stops the lava because it looks cool. And plus, like, volcanoes always fascinated me and terrified the hell out of me as a kid. So seeing one erupt and seeing the lava stopped by a single 12-year-old kid was pretty awesome, in my opinion. With the ash and everything following after. And then that's when the theme becomes hella epic when it starts playing as he's cooling the lava with the air.
I gotta go back and watch this scene because I'm not remembering a lot of this.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like sing the theme, but they only play that in epic moments, and that was like the first one I noticed as a child, where I was like, "Yo, Aang is a powerful bender." It's a joke because that's what Sokka says. All right.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I forgot
Yeah.
about that. um, yeah, that was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
I mean, for the volcano parts.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, that episode as a whole was decent. Not one of my
Sounds
favorites.
hella condescending, Evan. You're like, that was all right.
I mean,
I don't know.
there's
My
no-
episode was better.
I mean, it's my favorite. Of course, I'm gonna like it better. Like, no, I see that though. Like, just to give credit to all the other ones, like, I don't think there's a bad episode of the series. Like, there were a couple that I was like, that wasn't my favorite, but like, they weren't bad.
Yeah. Is it bad? I can't remember the ones up until Jet. I think that's because I watched it a few days ago, but I don't remember many of them.
You're asking if any of the ones before Jet were
Yeah, that was like before episode 10. Jet was episode 10. I don't remember anything before that.
I don't think so.
Sounds like the first episodes. I remember the Air Nomad Tempo where that was like episode 3, and
Yeah.
in between that, I don't know what the hell happened. I'd have to just look back at the episode titles to remember, but
My main criticism of the show, and it's not even really a criticism, is that the episodes are a little bit too predictable in themselves. Like, the show as a whole, like, I have no idea what's coming next for the show as a whole, but in each episode, like, there were a couple things where I was like, okay, I see where this is going after a few minutes. But I mean, it's a kid's show. You can't make it that complicated.
they only have 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah, they only have 20 minutes. So, and it's not like a procedural, like, it's not like they're following this totally set pattern, but of course they're introducing new characters, like one-off characters every episode. So they're all going to be necessarily kind of generic if they're only on screen for 5 minutes or whatever. Like, the thing with Jet, I remember I was like pretty early in that episode, I was like, okay, there's something going wrong here. Like, this is probably a cult. And it was like, okay, yeah, it's a cult. Like, a couple minutes later. But again, like, I don't think that's a bad thing. That's just kind of because it's a kid's show. And I never knew what was coming the next episode. I was never like 2 steps ahead of it there.
I mean, they kind of worked like anthologies sometimes. Like, they would, Warriors of Kyoshi, that was one, and then the prison one, that was another. I'm just remembering the episodes before Jet. But yeah, they kind of work like anthologies where they like go to a village or a place, and they're like, hey, this is the Avatar, and we're his 2 friends. And they're like, oh, we're having this problem. And then Aang solved it, and then they moved on. But sometimes you had the episodes like the Spirit World one, and then, the finale, where, everything was coming together.
Yeah, 'cause, like, it has a through line, but there is a little bit of an episodic nature to it, where it's like, each episode is typically its own individual story.
Yeah, but things they mention in some of the episodes are going to come back into play. For example, the Bato of the War Tribe episode, when them talking about the mat to their father.
Oh, that, yeah. I really liked that they had that episode.
Yeah. We'll get into that later. But last specific question, out of the show, what's your favorite element? Which one you going with? You haven't seen every element in its entirety yet, and this question, your answer might change when I ask it next time. But so far, of what you've seen,
for sure. I have been wondering as I'm watching it, like, which element, like, if I was going to be a bender, what kind would I want to be? I really don't know. Like, not fire, and not necessarily because the fire people are the bad guys. It just doesn't seem very practical to me.
You're fireist, Evan.
I'm a what?
You're fireist.
I
Fire
mean,
Nation
sure.
is the greatest nation of all the nations, Evan.
I mean, guilty as charged, but I still wouldn't want to be I'd rather be a firebender than not a bender. But I guess if if you don't need fire to be there to use it, that's a little different. But even so, like, it's hard to say. I feel like I think I'm gonna go with water. I would probably be a
Lame.
waterbender. Okay, or not.
I mean, you got the ice, but you see what Katara's doing, carrying the water pouch around, and it's like, yo, if you ain't near water, you gotta reuse that dirty ass water you're carrying around with you to fight people with, and like use it as a whip or turn it into ice. And I'm like, yeah, what are you gonna do? Drink it or like force other people to drink it? Shut up, Katara. That was my thought.
All right. Well, I mean, for me personally, I live in Rhode Island, which is you're never more than an hour from the beach. So water is a little bit more available here than...
And water is also brown because it's the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, fair enough. It's still water, though. But, I don't know, it seems more useful. Like, I don't think you can drown as a waterbender. So, that's nice. I mean, I feel like if you're a waterbender, you could always, like... Right? Like, you could bring yourself up and stuff. Like, that's... Couldn't you, like... You'd be a good surfer, probably, right?
Have you seen people surfing this show, Evan?
Well, not yet.
Will you see people surfing this show, Evan? I don't know. I answered for you.
I mean, kind of. Like, Aang surfs on the air. Like, I'm sure Katara could if she was good. Alright, well, I mean, it's kind of like surfing. I'm not totally off there. Alright, look, I'm gonna be a waterbender, and, like, you can do you, but I'm gonna be a waterbender.
I'm just
I'd be any
yanking
of them.
your chain, Evan.
I'd be any of them,
busting
but, like...
your chops.
Alright, well, I mean, which one would you be, then?
Oh, I'm going fire all the way. I used to debate with myself between Earth and fire, and the things they do with Earth is crazy cool, but because of something you learn later in the season, actually you see it in this season, but it's just like if you blink you miss it type of thing, where Iroh's, I think it was the storm where Iroh redirected the lightning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was,
so I'm going
yeah.
with fire. Plus you don't, like I said, you can generate it without needing to manipulate it. All fire, but plus the fire daggers that Zuko does sometimes, those are really cool.
Yeah. While we're on bending, like, the bending, like, just all of it, the fights, and just, like, when they're using it in general, is just so goddamn cool. Like, it is the coolest thing.
It's based off of, each is based off of a different martial art, and I don't remember what the name of the air one is, but that martial art that it's based off of is based off of evading, which is why Aang doesn't, like, throw punches and stuff most of the time.
Yeah, you see, he does seem to be a bit more defensive.
Fire all the way, bro. Like I said before, you'll see why in later seasons.
Yeah, I mean, maybe my opinion will change after the next season, because I could be swayed to go either on almost any of them. They're all cool.
Hey, if you guys share this podcast with one family member, I will literally drink water.
I'm sure fans cannot wait to hear that you've done that.
Yep, next episode. Alright, any more reaction?
I guess, I mean, this is the best kid show that I've ever seen.
Well, yeah.
That's pretty fair to say.
Damn right.
And not to qualify the statement, because I think I would stand by that in almost any case, but, like, I don't have, like, a great knowledge of kids shows, especially not Nickelodeon. Yes. Have I told you that I have never seen a full episode of SpongeBob? Okay. Yes. I mentioned that to a lot of people. I wasn't sure if you were one of them.
Yes. I still haven't forgiven you.
That's another thing I might get canceled for. But, like, I don't feel like I've missed out on that. But after seeing this, I do feel like I've kind of missed out on seeing this as a kid.
Yeah.
Not on, like, childhood as a whole.
No, just all your childhood.
I'm jealous that you have nostalgia for this. Because I like it, but I know I would like it more if... I feel like you probably have a relationship with this like I do with Harry Potter, as, like, something that's you still love, but you also loved as a kid in a different way.
Sure.
And I wish I had experienced the, like, childhood love of this, too.
Yep. Be jealous.
Already done. The great thing about it is like the kids show vibe. Of course, there's some dumb jokes in it, and like I said, it's a little predictable. But aside from that, it doesn't let being a kids show slow it down. Like, it's not pulling any punches. The Fire Nation is like still really oppressive. The bending stuff is like as cool as like the best action scenes in anything else I've seen.
And they don't pull any punches with death.
Oh no.
They be talking about death all the freaking time.
Yeah, like as I was watching this, last quarter I was taking this literature of genocide class, and I was like, this is striking some genocidal chords here. It's not like full on, but
the air nomads were wiped out.
Yeah. I mean, if that's not a genocide, what is?
We saw Mungiatso's skeleton.
I'm not remembering that, but yeah.
He was Aang's friend, the guy that was going to protect him from becoming... He was like, Aang needs to stay a child. I think it was the Storm episode.
Okay, I remember that guy.
Yeah, Aang needs to stay a child for as long as... And you saw his skeleton in episode 3. I think it was episode 3, where he met Momo. And he saw, like, his dead friend and went to the Avatar state, and they had to calm him down.
Yeah, and I think it was in that same episode, Aang says at like near the end of it, he was like, I really am the last airbender. And of course that's like the title of it, so it's obvious, but like it hit different there. I was like, oh wow, like that's what that means.
This motherfucker spit. Oh, yeah. I swore. Whoops, sorry.
I mean, I'm good with not keeping this clean if you are.
Okay, cool.
So not to like, I'm gonna jump ahead an episode for us because there's a line in the third Pirates movie, and this is not a spoiler, but I think it's Barbossa says to Jack, like, the sad thing about being the last of anything is by and by there'd be nothing left. And I thought of that with this. I was like, wow, like, and that's something I'm wondering with the later seasons is, are there going to be more airbenders anymore? Or is Aang going to actually be the last one?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you can't tell me that, but I'm wondering if maybe there's some way they can like revitalize airbenders. Because I don't know if it's like genetic or whatever. Because
necromancy is an element. Necromancy is an element.
I hope not. But yeah, that was not what I was thinking of there. But I mean, it seems to work kind of like, I know you're not familiar with Harry Potter so much, but is it more like being force sensitive, or is it more like being a wizard? Because like for wizards in Harry Potter, like if one of your parents is a wizard, you've got a really good chance of also being a wizard, but also they have Muggle-borns who are like...
I think it's genetics.
But Katara is a bender and Sokka isn't.
Yeah, sometimes it happens where, you know, somebody might not be a bender. Like, remember the twins from the Fortune Teller episode where Sokka was like, I need all the earthbenders to come this way, and one of the twins was like, I'm an earthbender, and the other twin said, I'm not.
I vaguely remember that moment.
Yeah, so it's kind of just like passing superpowers down or something. It's all genetics and who your parents were. Like, that's why Zuko and Azula can... Well, it's not really a spoiler, because...
Yeah, I know she's gonna be big in the next season.
Yeah, they're both firebenders, so... And their father is the Fire Lord. It's really where you're born that kind of determines what element you're gonna be able to bend. Like, if I was born in the Earth Kingdom, it's not like I'm gonna be a firebender, you know?
Right, but I'm saying, like, just having bending abilities at all.
Yeah, like, it's kind of just chance, like X-Men, I guess.
Okay.
If somebody is mutant and they marry somebody that's not a mutant.
I guess that's a better parallel, because I was gonna say force sensitivity in Star Wars.
No, that's like everybody can. No.
Yeah, and it's like stronger with some people than others, but yeah, I guess X-Men is a better parallel.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much all my general reactions, like, but mostly like. I'd watch it again. I'm excited for more. Thank you for picking this, because this is a blind spot I kind of knew I had, but I didn't realize how severe it was.
You goddamn right. You're welcome. All right, let's get on to characters, and then we'll do themes and then other stuff.
Okay.
So, character number 1, The Last Airbender Aang. He's a carefree, naive boy 12 years old. Well, actually 112, depending on how you look at it. Uh, he's neutral good without being a Boy Scout. So he's not like perfect in every way. You know, he's 12 years old, so he's gonna make mistakes. He makes several mistakes throughout the course of the first season, but he's only 12, like I said, so he pretty much gets a pass. A very big note, and the only other note I had was he's very peaceful and good at bringing about peace without needing to get rid of enemies. For example, in the finale, except for the finale. For example, the Great Divide, or the Warriors of Kyoshi, where he rode the giant, the Nagi, where he put the fires out.
Yeah, he does seem to be a peacekeeper just in general.
Just
like
naturally good at it. Nobody taught him to do that. He's just really good at doing that. But that's Aang. What else? What else you got?
On that note, like, one thing that is keeping this show interesting for me, I mean, one of many, was how it keeps developing what his role as the Avatar is. He's got to keep figuring out, like, one, how to use his powers and learning the other elements, but he's also learning, like, what people expect from him as an Avatar, catching up on the past 100 years of history because a lot's changed, and it seems like this is kind of uncharted territory for any Avatar, at least from what I remember. Didn't say that any other Avatar had, like, dealt with this level
needed
of, like,
to save the world.
Yeah, like, they didn't have to stop fascism in their kingdom and stuff like that. At least, not that we've heard yet. It reminds me of two things, mostly. One is the spider people in Into the Spider-Verse, where, like, Miles is having to fill the shoes of something that people already have an expectation of. He's the new Spider-Man, and he's going to be a little different, but there's also, like, a template for what being Spider-Man means to everyone in New York. And it seems to be similar with Aang, where it's like people have memories and stories of avatars from the past, and they've got an expectation of this is what you're meant to do as the Avatar, and he's kind of learning that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have anything on that at all?
Nah.
Without spoilers.
He's everybody's favorite bald boy.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, I mean, he's certainly over Caillou. I mean,
sure.
Not that that's a high bar to clear, but
Aang is just lawful neutral Caillou.
Yeah, or lawful neutral Charlie Brown. Now that I think of it, Charlie Brown's a better
neutral
bald
good
boy.
Yeah, Caillou is more like neutral evil. He was just a real terror and a jerk. Why did I like that show?
I never did. I don't remember Caillou being a jerk, but I mean, if he is,
he was
sure.
Just always crying and stuff. Whatever. This ain't about the arrow tattooedless bald kid. This is about a arrow tattooed bald kid.
Thank God, because if you had us watch Caillou, I would have no.
Oh hell no.
And the other thing it reminds me of is, did you ever read the Inheritance Cycle, Aragon eldest with the dragons on the cover?
Nope. I saw the movie.
Yeah, that's about as bad as something that we're not going to mention again in terms of adaptation. But in those, there's like dragon riders that kind of have a similar history where they're sort of meant to be a neutral party because there's like all different fantasy races in that, like elves and dwarves and a knockoff of orcs in there, and riders.
What do they call it? Sporks.
Are you referencing what I think you're referencing?
I'm not making a reference, but if that was a reference, yeah, sure.
Well, actually, they're not, but sure.
Wait, what was I referencing?
It was a VeggieTales parody of Lord of the Rings. They turned orcs into sporks.
My god.
I thought you were referencing that there, but I guess not.
I don't remember most of VeggieTales, bro. It's not like I blocked it out, I just don't remember.
I do, because I had younger siblings. Much younger siblings. Anyway, back to Aragon. In those books, they had, like, all the dragon riders are kind of this neutral party that isn't supposed to be too partial to, like, one race or tribe or like even like political group, because there's like all these sorts of things and stuff like that, and it felt similar to the way that Aang was expected to sort of be a mediator as the Avatar a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not totally, because obviously he takes sides with basically like standing up for the little guy, but like in that episode where they're crossing the canyon, he's like, I can't be partial to either group, because if I go with one, the other one's gonna get pissed and be like, why are you with them? So
yeah,
because it shows
it was also the
partiality.
same thing that showed immediately once the word got around with the air nomads that he was an Avatar, when they were going to play that ball game or whatever on their air spheres, and they were like, now that you're the Avatar, it's going to be a disadvantage for whoever doesn't have you on their team.
Yeah, just a couple other like good moments with him. I liked his, I'm mentioning this because I think it might come up again, that moment when he's learning firebending and he like screws up, and I forget exactly what happens, but he kind of has this like never again attitude where he's like, fire is too dangerous to deal with, but of course someday he's gonna have to. So I'm really interested to see what's gonna happen.
His destiny.
Yeah, like,
so to explain, first book this season, that's what they call the seasons. Book 1 is called Water. Book 2 is Earth. Book 3 is Fire.
Right, so I know eventually...
Any hint to anything.
Yeah, but I was, like, in that episode, I was wondering...
how he's gonna get over that.
Kind of, because they're, like, that guy, the rogue firebender that he talked to was, like, explaining to him that there's this different philosophy with firebending where it's not like airbending, which isn't like waterbending. It's a different thing that has a more volatile nature to it.
Yep.
And that's a fairly typical thing of like, if something where like if a character has a really powerful ability, it's difficult to control. But it does seem to play into like Fire Nation culture, where it's a little bit like on the nose that they're like fiery, angry people, but that does seem to kind of be the idea that they're going for.
All except Iroh.
All except Iroh. Yeah, Iroh's cool. I mean, I think there's probably going to be other cool firebending characters, but we just maybe haven't seen them yet. Like, I did like that, you know, obviously they kind of show that like the Fire Nation as a whole is they're basically fascists or Nazis or whatever, but they did kind of, with Iroh and a couple other people, like that festival, it was kind of showing like, oh, the Fire Nation itself.
They're normal people.
Yeah, like the government and like the people in charge are obviously like terrible, but like the Fire Nation isn't inherently bad or anything, which this is going to be the first of maybe a couple comparisons I make to Harry Potter. I guess the second, because I've already brought it up. But like there is an argument in that fan base that Slytherins are too demonized, which I kind of agree with that, but I think that's not...
Listen to the name.
Yeah, and I know you haven't read the books for it, but I think
or watch the movies.
Nope. If you had read like pretty short into the first book, like the first mention of Slytherins is that it gets misinterpreted. I think the wording is every bad wizard was from Slytherin, but I think that often gets misread as every wizard from Slytherin is bad. But there's a reason it gets misread like that, which is that all of those characters, with maybe a couple of exceptions, are like terrible people.
Isn't Malfoy Slytherin?
Yes. That basically just like Fire Nation people are not all terrible, even if like they as a whole are the villains of this show. Yeah,
there was even that one guy, I don't know what they were called, priests or something like that. I think it was Shiloh? Shy something. The one that helped him get into the temple.
Oh, yeah. In the Fire Temple episode, yes.
Yeah. Wait, did you also know Roku
because Avatar Roku was a firebender.
Yeah.
That was something I was interested in also as like part of the Avatar identity was how it rotates every cycle.
Yep. Kyoshi was an earthbender.
He was 2 before Aang.
Kyoshi? No, she was like 400 years ago or something. But
Oh,
still, I just wanted to mention
okay.
that. But the one 2 before Aang would have been an earthbender.
Right, yeah, because it goes air, water, earth, fire. Just
Mm-hmm.
like the order that he learns them in, right?
Yeah.
It seems deliberate, that order.
Because fire, they saving best for last, Evan. That's why. That's why they did water first. Because it's lame. All right, let's go to. Speaking of water and lame, I'm kidding about the lame part. Let's go to Katara.
Okay.
It is sad, and you say this in your notes. I kind of stole this note. That Aang is better at waterbending than her at first. And I was kind of mad at her as a child when I saw she was mad at him for being better than her. But as an adult now, I'm like, yeah, that kind of sucks. I mean, but he is like destined to be like the best at all of this. So I kind of get it. But if you're like trying to learn with him and he's just over there splashing and whipping the water around like it's a dance, like it ain't nothing, and you're over there concentrating and everything. She said it took her a whole 2 months to do a move he did in like 3 seconds. I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that really hurts. Like, I think part of it is like everyone's had that. Like, if you have something that you pride yourself on, and then someone like,
It's like, yeah. It's like somebody beat me in a video game I've been playing for a few months on their first try by button mashing. Like, it's kind of like that. That's
yeah, I've had that happen to me, but I also am like not good at video games, so that
it hurts my soul.
yeah.
Especially if that person is a sore winner and they're like, "Yo, what happened, boy? I thought you played this game."
I know. Oh, that's always the worst because you're like, if they're playing you, you've probably been like, not to brag or anything, but like, I'm kind of good at this, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll go easy on you, and then you're like, oh shit,
Yeah,
like, I just,
I got to use
I
my
just got
best
schooled
character
by a,
against them. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, but it is that feeling of like it's supposed to be. This is like this one thing is supposed to be mine.
right. No, I'm getting my ass kicked. Yeah. Only other note I had on it was she does become more important later because, I mean, she was important in that prison episode, and she was kind of just she was in the spotlight for the Jet episode,
Hmm.
but oh, and then the waterbending master, she was really important in that. That was kind of all
Yeah.
about her. But yeah, I didn't really have much to say about her. Like, they're all just good characters. They're all just growing. So and they all have their flaws. Like, she stole that waterbending scroll. That is not something I would have done if I was. I don't know how old Katara and Sokka are, but I can imagine they're like older than Aang, but younger than Zuko's, like 13, 14.
14. Well, I mean, to the point of something you were saying a minute ago, like, I mean, obviously Aang's the lead, but there are a couple episodes where he takes the back seat and one of the other two gets to come to the fore for that episode and kind
Mm-hmm.
of gets their own. I really appreciated that.
Sokka had his Bato one.
Yeah, and I was surprised that he kind of got the spotlight. I mean, we'll get into him later, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that really added to it, especially because like, obviously Aang is like the chosen one of this show and he's at the center of it, but like there's a reason we hear Katara doing the voiceover at the beginning of every episode because it's kind of her thing too.
Mm-hmm. Plus, she's the one that broke Aang out accidentally, granted, but she's like the Kickstarter, the spark.
Well, not only that, she and Sokka kind of have taken on this responsibility to Aang. Like, they're not protecting him per se, but like they're with him.
Supporting.
And yeah, they're supporting him, and that's a big responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that, which is why one of my favorite episodes, not necessarily in that I enjoyed it the most, but I loved that they included this, was when they meet that friend of their father's and they almost go meet him
Mm-hmm.
because it reminds you that, like, they have a life that they've left behind.
Yeah, they're not just side characters.
Exactly. And when they do decide to stay, like, of course, it's sort of predictable because, they're not going to just up and leave in the middle of the season. But it does give more weight to the fact that, like, this isn't just them being along for the ride. Like, this is a choice for them.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to do this. And it speaks a lot, I think, to both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked with her that she's often right, but not always. Like, there are times when she's the voice of reason, and sometimes when she's being unreasonable. Because, like, again, comparing to Harry Potter, like, the trio in that, it's always Hermione is pretty much right in every situation. And part of that is good for her character, because, like, that's who she is. She's, like, a very reasonable person. But it does end up getting a little bit predictable at times, like, that, of course, she's going to be right. And I don't know which one I like better as a character, but I like that she is not Hermione. Especially because they're a little bit younger in this, and, like, it worked well for me, I think. Not because, like, one is better than the other, it's just, it separates them. And that's a trope where, this doesn't have any, like, pre-existing source material, right?
No.
Okay. Yeah, because this is 2005, so that's plenty late enough for her to have become a Hermione ripoff, of which there are many. And she's not. Yeah. So I appreciated that.
So, why is she your favorite?
Partly because I feel like she has more to do. I think partly because she just is, like, pretty active. And also that, like, I did enjoy, it's not an arc, but, like, her improvement at waterbending, where in the first episode, she's, like, kind of struggling with it, and then there's the bit with Aang, like, doing better than her, and then they get to the water tribe, and she's
squaring up with the waterbending master.
Yeah, that was such a good fight scene.
Yeah.
I feel like she's going to be more important in the rest of it, and I don't know why yet, but I'm excited to see what else they do.
So it's just the potential which makes her your favorite.
I mean, among other things, yes. That's why her over Zuko, because otherwise they're pretty much tied.
So that's all for Katara. Let's move right along to Sokka.
Yep.
I didn't like him as a child. I just never related to him. Did not care in the slightest about a non-bender of the main cast. I was like, what is a non-bender doing here? What's the point? He's funny sometimes, yeah. But, like, did they just need a third character? But without him, I'm not sure the show would be as successful as it is. And as it was and still is. I feel like he grounds the show. Now I'm viewing it as an adult. I feel like he grounds the show, being the only non-bender of the trio, or of the group so far. And he's the character we see the Avatar world through. It's from the eyes of a normal dude, and he's learning about this stuff as all of us are. He's like, he calls bending magic at first, and, that's on the surface, if you're watching the show blind, it might appear to be magic. Yeah, Sokka's hella important.
Yeah, I hadn't noticed that in watching the show. I hadn't really realized that he was as important as you were just pointing out that he is.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had more of the reaction that you had originally, where, like, he is kind of annoying. Like, he feels like the character that's there for kids to make fun of and quote.
Mm-hmm.
Which he is. But, I mean, yeah, I feel like he is reacting to this in a way that, like, all of us as non-benders, I don't know about you, but I'm a non-bender, so...
I've been trying, but I ain't got none yet.
I mean, I wish you luck with that, but maybe spend time doing other things. But, like, I wouldn't say he's an audience surrogate character in the traditional sense, but he is... It's nice that he's there, because even though sometimes he does feel a little bit like dead weight when Aang and Katara can do all these other things, he still occasionally has moments where he shines. and it's still very much like sometimes they have to kind of maneuver things to make him important, but he still is, and that's nice.
I think the Northern Air Temple episode showed his real potential with the inventor guy.
Yes,
And they
yeah,
were
that
like
was a good one.
brainstorming, and yeah, I never really liked that episode because I didn't find it all that interesting, but it showed growth in him and how useful he can be to the group, and not just them, but a whole village of people.
Because he's being smart in that episode, and like, of course, Katara is surprised at it, and I think he's a little surprised at it too. But it adds to his character because if he was always dumb, then he'd be annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I liked with him, and you don't feel it too much throughout the show, but in the first couple episodes, they kind of poke fun at how he's training like all the 5-year-olds to defend the village and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time they left the village, I kind of realized like, oh no, that's really a responsibility. Like he's like the oldest man in the village because all the other ones are off fighting. So like when the Fire Nation comes and attacks, like of course he doesn't end up being able to do much, but
He's the only one that can defend it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things that made me realize like, oh, this show is going to be different because they're acknowledging that responsibility that he has. And even though it doesn't last very long, it shows that he's not just the comic relief.
Yeah, thinking back at it, I gotta give him props in that moment. Like, I'm not sure personally, if I was in his shoes, I'm not sure I'd be able to square up against the prince of the dude that's killing everybody. He straight up, like, was ready, and he had wore face paint on, and he was ready to, it obviously didn't happen, but it seemed like he was ready to die for that village in that moment. Because he was going all out for somebody who he didn't know and possibly, well, definitely could have killed him. With Zuko really didn't even need to, he didn't firebend in his fight, and he wouldn't need to in order to kill Sokka. So I know it's a kid's show, and they kind of played it for laughs, where he was just beating Sokka up the entire time without needing to move from his spot. But in a realistic situation like that, it's kind of terrifying. But he did it.
Yeah, and even though they play that for laughs, what they don't do in that scene is make a bigger joke out of it and have him, when the chips are down, run and hide, which how many shows or kids things would do and have done that.
Right.
Like, I give them huge props for that, for not doing that coward thing just for a joke.
Yeah, he's not a coward by any means. I just realized with you saying that, I just realized he's not a coward. Like, he's a goofball, actually, Aang too. But yeah, dude steps up, like, especially with the Jet thing where he saved the village for being flooded and calling Jet out on his bullshit.
Yeah, and in that episode, like, he's the voice of reason there. Like,
Right.
he's right. He sees Jet for exactly what he is from the word go, and they let him be right there.
Yeah. Actually, all the trio has their very intelligent moments. Like, yeah, they can all be goofballs, but because you got to remember, these are kids.
Yeah.
So, but they're all just very intelligent for their age, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And hella brave. They're just going around the world on a flying thing, meeting new people and going to these villages and just doing this shit,
Yeah, and that's a big thing. And, like, of course it's, like, fun, but it's also, they're leaving home for the first time, and that's not easy.
For a purpose of saving the world, no biggie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to tie it back to Sokka also, like, he's going along with all this equipped with his boomerang and his freaking ice pick thing.
Yep.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't know.
I forget what
club,
episode
maybe?
it was, but like pretty late in the series, I was like, oh, finally Sokka's boomerang actually worked.
Oh, yeah.
Because almost every time he uses it, it's just like, nah, like,
Yeah.
you got anything else? Like,
No bending? You can't bend, right? No bending? All right.
but like, it's props to him because he's pretty much just got himself to work with. Like, I think I'm paraphrasing from Kick-Ass here, but like, I've felt this in reading a lot of like fantasy series and stuff that had powered characters. Like, of course, when you read that or watch these shows, like you like to think I would be brave in that moment too. But then if you have like a snapback to reality, it's like, of course they're brave. Like, look at what they have at their disposal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wouldn't you also, if you had whatever these abilities are, like, you'd do more.
Yeah.
You'd go out and try to help people and
Great power, great responsibility.
Exactly. Which is kind of the whole premise behind Kick-Ass is like he has no skills and he's going out and doing it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And, not to get too deep into that movie, but it really speaks to that thing that I think is rarely acknowledged, which is it can be easy to be brave when you've got odds of
the power
winning.
to do it. Yeah.
And maybe it will get acknowledged with Sokka later, but I think it's worth acknowledging here.
Just a quick note, that first Kick-Ass movie, I remember him getting his ass kicked a lot, and it should have been called Ass Kicked, and then Ass Kicked 2, because he got beat up a lot.
I have yet to see
Jesus
the sequel,
Christ.
but yeah. I liked that for what it was.
Yeah.
At least the first one.
Alright, we gotta move along. The best boy, my favorite character, well, so far, Zuko, the fire boy. He's very lost. He's seeking honor, voiced by Dante Bosco. He's in a couple of small things, but he's in one of my favorite movies, Blood and Bone. He was like Pinball, the sidekick.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's the movie, Michael Jai White's movie. Really fun watch, because it's like martial arts. Really fun. But he was... Do you know Nostalgia Critic?
I have seen...
Channel
I've
awesome.
scrolled past it on YouTube. I don't think I've ever watched any of it.
Because he was in... When Nostalgia Critic was reviewing this show, he was in... He actually made an... Well, actually, it wasn't just an appearance. He was part of that episode. But anyway, he's seeking honor. And is pretty much willing to destroy himself and everyone around him in order to get it back. In order to get back into the good graces of dear old Daddy Firelord. Originally watching the show as a child, I just thought he was an evil character. But by no means is he evil. He's not like a killer. He's not even really trying to hurt anybody. He's tried many times passive ways to get the Avatar in his clutches without needing to fight. Or it doesn't seem like he wants to fight. He just wants to capture the Avatar, bring it back to Dad. And that shows in the first episode, actually, where he captures him with only, like, playfully beating the crap out of Sokka. And then it's like, I'm not going to hurt your village if you just come with me. But he's more antagonistic than anything, because he's opposed to the protagonist. He's trying to capture one of the protagonists to bring him to his dad, so that's a thing. And there's a few times where you think he might turn to the side of good, like when Aang rescues him from Zhao as the Blue Spirit, but then he attacks Aang, forcing him to flee. It's like, Zuko, you have the potential to be a good guy. It's just, you're not there. What are you doing? And then that's where Iroh comes into play, but we're talking about Zuko first, so what do you have on Zuko?
The only thing I would say is, like, I kind of felt like he is out to pick a fight. He's not looking to just, like, go kill people. But, I mean, he's got so much angst in this show that he's expressing.
He's an angry little boy.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when, but, like, partway through watching this, I was like, oh, I know where I've seen him before. He's Kylo Ren before Kylo Ren was a thing. Like, I don't like him any less for that. Yeah. His relationship with General Zhao, I think, is where we see that. Like, he's trying to prove himself to Zhao and be like, I'm as good a firebender as you.
Zhao's a piece of shit, though, so you gotta give him a pass on that.
Well, yeah, but also,
or he
like...
was, because...
Oh, yeah. But even then, like, I felt like Zhao was sort of a surrogate for his father in this case. Not in that he's a father figure, but in that, like, he's fighting Zhao for, like, the same reasons he's angry at his father. Like, they hate each other for the same reasons. I mean, I agree. Like, it's clear that he's redeemable I'm interested to see what happens next with him. I don't know if he's going to be the same as he is in this season, or if he's going to start turning things around right away, or whatever. Because at the end, he kind of says something to the effect of, like, I'm just tired. I'm done with chasing the Avatar around and doing all this. I don't think this is me. Or something like that. So I'm wondering if that's what's going to happen, or if maybe he's going to, like, get into a rivalry with his sister or something and not want to get shown up by her, something like that. One thing that I noticed right away was, like, the rivalry between him and Aang felt epic from the moment they're first on screen together. Like, it just automatically had, like, tangible stakes, and, like, you almost want him to succeed. Like, of course you're rooting for Aang. And especially later when we learn, like, how he got kicked out of the Fire Nation and everything for being a pacifist, too.
Yeah.
Which I think really added. And it's part of why we probably think he's redeemable, is mostly because of that. But I also remember writing down in that episode, like, okay, now we know why he's doing it, but now we also know he's never going to stop. Which, at the time, I believed that. I don't know if I do anymore.
Just to backtrack a little bit, he can be very aggressive. Well, I did say he's not trying to pick a fight, but, like, it seems like he's only trying to pick a fight when he feels disrespected. And honor is obviously a huge thing with him. So when he feels like, for example, when that lieutenant in the Storm episode, he feels like the lieutenant disrespected him, he was ready to square up. And he was like, "Yo, you're not gonna be on my ship disrespecting me, because first of all, I'm a prince and I'm leagues above you as far as rank goes. So you need to watch your mouth." Like I said, Zhao would just make anybody angry. He's just an asshole. Like, yo, I got chills when Iroh started shouting at him. And he's told him, like, yo, when Zhao had the koi fish, the moon spirit, in the bag, and he was like, yo, you don't know what you're messing with. You're not about to kill that spirit. If you kill that spirit, I'm going to go tenfold on your ass. Iroh's a G, bro. Iroh going out of his way to do that, just yell and kind of be opposite of what he's been this entire time, shows how big of an asshole Zhao was. Like, the fact that he could evoke that out of arguably the calmest person in the season, in the show up until this point.
Do you want to just get into Iroh now? Or
let's go to Iroh. So, oddly enough, with all of the shit I just said about Iroh, I didn't like him as a kid. When I watched the show, I just thought he was a weird old dude, and I was like, why the hell is he part of the cast? You know, sometimes he's giving words of advice. Okay, cool. But I didn't really like him as a kid because he was an old guy, and I didn't relate to being old when I was... I don't remember how old I was when I watched this, but yeah, I didn't relate to gray hairs and tea and noodles. But now, though, he's still not one of my favorite characters. Well, he might be one of my favorites, but I can really see why others favor him. I definitely want him as an uncle, like in real life, because he just seems to know every damn thing. So he's supportive of Zuko no matter what Zuko does. Like, Zuko could try and kill him, and Iroh's like, you know what, nephew, that's not the best thing for you right now. You might not want to do that. And Zuko's like, you know what, you're right, I'm not gonna kill you, huh? And then, you know, that's the end of that, and he's still on Zuko's side 100%. He serves as Zuko's moral compass, his mentor, his guide, his every damn thing. Like, without Iroh, Zuko would be 1000% lost. Oh, this is a side note from whatever I was just saying. I never understood how he's the Fire Lord's brother, even though he appears to be a couple decades older. Like, I'm pretty sure, I don't remember if they mentioned his name, Fire Lord Ozai, the current Fire Lord, Zuko's father, he's like in his 40s. And Iroh looks well over 60. So, I never understood, like, how that works. Also, fun fact, did you know Zuko is, even though he appears to be like one of the tallest characters in the cast, he's only 5'4".
Really?
He's 5'4", Evan. You're taller than him, Evan.
How tall is Aang then? That makes Aang like 3 feet tall.
He's 5'4".
Jeez, then Iroh's like 4 feet tall.
Yes, Evan. Yeah, they're all like ridiculously short. Like, how tall are you, Evan?
5'7", 5'9",
Yeah,
if my hair's long and it.
You tower over them, and there are going to be people shorter than Iroh, shorter than Aang. You'll see. They're really they're just.
We've been seeing some of the classic animated big head, small body syndrome.
What?
You know how like a lot of times cartoon characters have huge heads and tiny bodies.
Oh yeah.
Like My Weird School. Did you read My Weird School as a kid?
No.
Oh.
Evan.
Okay.
I don't know any of your. I feel like you grew up in a different universe.
I'm surprised you haven't heard of that though, because the author's from Jersey, and like when I lived in Pennsylvania, he came and visited my school. I would have thought maybe, because you've lived in Jersey your whole life, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I would have. I think yeah.
All except the 4 years I was in college, and even then I was still
right across the river.
Yeah.
I mean, don't go check them out now, because without nostalgia that you're gonna hate it. But like, that's a book series where all the pictures have the kids' heads are like the same size as their bodies.
That's just animation now in general. Like the Loud House and SpongeBob still. Well, not really SpongeBob. You can't count SpongeBob, but like the Fairly Odd Parents is another example.
Yeah. Oh, Fairly Odd Parents looks basically like My Weird School for a comparison.
But yeah, everybody in this show is ridiculously short. That's all I had on Iroh. He's just a great, and he's gonna be, every character you see now is just going to get better, and as a result, the show is just gonna get better. What'd you have on Iroh?
I liked him. I think for the first half of the season, I kind of had your like child reaction as it, like when like your
He just seems like
a
goofy pervert old dude. Well, you know, he wasn't even really perverted, except with June, that bounty hunter, with the blind thing she wrote on you.
Yeah. I mean, I did get the first few episodes. I was just kind of like, oh, he might be a little bit of an annoying sage type. But by the end, like, I was really rooting for him and Zuko.
Mm-hmm, right?
When Zuko, we think, gets blown up, I was like, I didn't want to see Zuko go, and I knew he wasn't dead. But I felt for Iroh in that moment. I was like, oh, like, that's got to hit so hard for him.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the season, I realized why I like him, because he reminds me of my favorite Game of Thrones character, Davos Seaworth. Iroh reminded me a lot of him, because they're really supportive, not always of maybe the best people, but they have like a really strong, not to call him a sidekick, but he has really strong sidekick energy in a way that I love. I was big on him by the end of the season. Yeah, he's probably my third favorite. Mostly in the second half of the show, though.
Yeah. The second half of the show is just better, though. Because the first half is just, as like I said, I couldn't even remember. But second half is just kind of just building upon not just the world, but just like the story and the characters and just everything.
Yeah. Like, even without you saying that this is going to get better, I'm expecting this to keep getting better.
Yeah.
I just get the sense that, like, we've seen a lot, but there's a lot more to see.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear your reactions from the other seasons. Well, let's do themes/topics. I only wrote one theme. I mean, you mentioned that there's a theme for every episode, which is very true, and I can't believe I didn't pick that out, but that's why there's two of us. So, the overarching theme is destiny. Agree or disagree? Agree?
Fully agree. Fully
Good.
agree.
Cool. Aang ran away from his destiny to beat the Fire Lord, or just ran away from his destiny of becoming the Avatar. Zuko is trying his hardest and just full-blown sprinting at trying to run towards his destiny by capturing Aang. Yue's destiny was to literally become the moon. Out of context, that sounds fucking insane. Zhao thought it was his destiny to kill the moon, and technically he did, but then the moon killed him. Well, the giant koi fish killed him. And then it's Appa's destiny to just
be the MVP.
Sure.
I want him to get a medal the same way Star Wars fans wanted Chewie to get a medal after forever.
Yeah.
I want a medal for Appa by the end of season 3.
Yeah. Yeah, Destiny. You got anything on Destiny? Or if not, we can just keep moving.
I mean, I agree that Destiny's a big part of it, and I think it's similar to what I was saying earlier. Not totally connected, but similar to what I was saying about like his role as the Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I will say that I am only really thinking of now that you're mentioning it is, we've got the summer solstice deadline, and Aang has to like stop the Fire Lord, but I really appreciate that there is no prophecy in this show. I don't know how you feel about prophecies, and maybe this isn't the best time to get into it, but
They're kind of annoying.
fully agree. I've never liked prophecies in stories, and this isn't the right context to talk about that, but I'm really glad there is not a prophecy here because it feels like the perfect setting for one, and I don't mean that in a good way. Not to discredit the show.
Be cliche if they used one.
It would be a shame if they used one. Like it has all the elements in place for there to be a prophecy, and I'm really glad they didn't take the bait and do one because I think that would have weakened the show. Prophecies are a topic for a different time, but I never like that they're there.
I mean, he's a very special character. He's the chosen one, literally, but it's not.
But he's not chosen to do a thing. He's chosen to be a thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they do say defeat the Fire Lord, but it's not like that's written anywhere. Everybody's just telling him, "Hey, you gotta take this dude down. You're the only one that can do it." But It's not like there was somebody that was like, there's something special about you. You're gonna have an epic battle against this guy that's killing people. And
and also to even take it a step further, they make the whole Fire Lord oppression thing, that's his fault. Like, he ran away from it initially, and there's, the little back and forth of, like, would he have died in the attack or whatever, but people have been like, where have you been the last 100 years?
Yeah, what he did wasn't supposed to happen, essentially. Mm-hmm. There was supposed to be a water avatar by now. It's not the case.
And also, like, something I've been wondering with this, because, anytime there's a story where there have been several of something and there's a pattern that's been established, what almost always happens is something breaks the pattern. Like, just to use an example of something we've already talked about, like Ready or Not, there was the recurring hide and seek game, and it apparently every time it's been this way, so we know instinctively that, like, I mean, spoilers, Grace is going to get out. Mm-hmm. So there have been 400 avatars or whatever, and we're focusing on this one. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, aside from
change.
Yeah, so what makes Aang that avatar?
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to find out.
Mm-hmm. All right. Some other themes, you can just list them if you want.
Just like something I noticed, and I don't think this is the only type of show to do this, but every episode, or not everyone, but many episodes, I felt like had little mini themes that they were doing. Like, I felt like the volcano one with the fortune teller had a little bit of like science versus religion in it.
Oh, yeah. That one guy that asked Sokka, "Can your science explain how it rains?" Yeah, it can.
Yeah, and it was a little annoying how the fortune teller, and wow, on the note of prophecies, like, they literally had a fortune teller in this show and didn't have her give a prophecy. Yeah. I mean, technically she did.
I mean, she did, but he was like, "Yeah, I know that."
Right, and like they kind of like shipped Aang and Katara, but like we're maybe supposed to ship them anyway. I was wondering about that, but that's another discussion. In that episode, there was a little bit of a cop out with that, where it was like, are my prophecies real? Am I full of shit? Well, I mean, it makes money, so sure. Yeah, I don't know. Fortune tellers are public service announcement for any of our listeners who, on the off chance, believe in fortune tellers. Like, save your money and, like, I don't know, invest in a magic 8-ball because they're just as reliable.
Oof. That's a big oof, Chief.
Yeah. No. Fortune tellers are full of shit.
Go to a fortune teller and offer them to tell you you're bad with your money. Now get out.
Yeah. That's probably the best advice your fortune teller will ever give you.
The truest
advice, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other themes though, we kind of had the one with Jet was like basically a cult.
Oh, you'll see. You haven't seen the end of cults, Evan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm interested.
I needed to say that. Yeah, I just needed.
I kind
needed
of
to
figured
say
that would be a one-off thing, but okay.
Nope. People that watched the show already and saw. I'm not gonna say which season it's in, but people that watched the show already know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'm guessing that's big.
Yeah.
There's a couple episodes where like Sokka's sexism comes up a little bit, where he's like, "Oh, because you're a girl," and then
Warriors
gets
of
his ass kicked.
Kyoshi.
Yeah.
And then the waterbending master one with Paku. He's like, "You're a girl. Girls are supposed to
Yeah.
go and do that."
Yeah, and I was so upset for her in that one, like especially because now she's like great at waterbending. That was part of what made that episode so great. And then we had like the episode where they're crossing the canyon. There's a little bit of like regional racism in there and alternate histories. And like I thought the alternate histories part of that was a little bit oversimplified, but it does I mean that's a true thing where like one side always has their version of history and the other has theirs.
And both think they're right.
Yeah, and it wasn't really a case of like history is written by the winners because there wasn't like there was a class divide between them, but it wasn't like one was ruling the other. They just had like a tribe rivalry. It literally is like one event that is shown in two different ways. I didn't love the way that was resolved, but like it was cool that they brought up that theme, especially for a kid's show.
You didn't like the way it was resolved?
I didn't. I was like, well, I was a little bit torn on it because Aang kind of is like, well, I just made that up on the spot, but they believed it, so, problem solved. Which, yes, but I was also like, that kind of would have been cool if it was true, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, like, there were probably other themes, but the last one I wrote down was progress versus tradition when they go to the...
Northern Air Temple?
Yeah, the Northern Air Temple with the guys that make all like the gliders and stuff. And also I really liked the Aang's line in that episode. It was something like, he may not be an airbender, but he has the spirit of one.
Oh, tail, yeah.
And that was cool that they did that because of course at first he's upset. He's like, this is an airbending temple. And they are making like weapons for the Fire Nation, which I guess there's even more themes in that one too, because like
oppression.
Yeah, that's like World War II scientist vibes. But he's realizing like, oh, maybe they turn this into something else, but it still kind of is the next best thing to being an air temple. So I appreciated that. Again, the episodes themselves were predictable and the themes are very simplified, but they're there and they're included like effectively. They're not just saying like this thing exists. They're actually exploring them a little bit, which I really appreciate.
Yes. All right. So let's get on to the topics. I can't really call them themes because I don't think they're themes, but the world building. So it's obviously a fantasy world, right? But the way they steadily build the world is phenomenal in my opinion. From the very first episode, you see that animals aren't normal, seeing as how the first one you see is a giant flying bison.
Yeah.
It's not like a fish or anything. It's a six-legged flying bison with tattoos. I don't think that exists in the real world. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong.
Yeah, let's go with no.
Yeah. And you see bending the elements is the thing when Katara accidentally releases Aang. And the four elements that people can bend are split across kingdoms, tribes, and nations. Quite literally the Water Tribe, the Earth Kingdom, and the Fire Nation. And then as the show progresses, it goes further with the world building steadily. I said steadily before, but everything I just mentioned just now actually just pretty much happened in the first episode. But they're kind of throwing you into it and then explaining it. But then it goes further by explaining the spirits and spirit world and past lives and the Avatar state where Aang's bending ability seems to increase exponentially. Yeah, I think it's just really, really, really good world building. It's not like hard to buy that any of this stuff is possible within this world. Like it feels very fantastical, especially with, like I said, just seeing the animals and it's like, well, this obviously does not take place in any stretch of the imagination of what this world, this real world we live in, has been at any point. I think there was another show. Hunter x Hunter was another show where it had really strange animals that were just a combination of some other animals, but yeah, hella good world building.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't noticed anything really great with world building until you mentioned it, but I think that in itself is kind of a testament to it because I
Yeah,
never had questions about the
right.
world building.
You believed everything you saw.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think that's a really important thing now that I'm thinking of it, that like is important to world building is what are the limitations, and you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
specifically set them out, but tying it back to, I mean, we've mentioned Star Wars a couple times. That's something that I feel like, and I don't think even like the most hardcore Star Wars fans would argue with me on this. Like, the Force is whatever the hell the writers want it to be at
Pretty
this point.
much.
Like, they've been introducing new Force powers, and I think literally every Star Wars movie has new Force powers
Pretty much.
that kind of like subvert old ones. We don't have to get into the nuances of the Star Wars fandom, but that's not an issue here. I'm curious about like what the deal with Aang's avatar state is, but it doesn't subvert anything else that's there. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't discredit
It's-
his other bending abilities, or like, even though he's
it's-
able to firebend right now, he's not a firebender.
it's funny.
Hmm.
Season 2, episode 1 is called the Avatar State.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'm gonna be learning that pretty soon.
I'm not gonna say anything about it. I'm just letting you know the name of the episode, Evan.
Well,
The name
I
of the
could have.
episode
Yeah. That's not a spoiler.
is
So-
the Avatar State, Evan. It's the Avatar State. I didn't really notice the world building as a child because I was just watching the show and I was like, whoa, look at what they can do. But I appreciate the world building so much more as an adult now. As a writer myself, you might have heard of my book, but world building is so important. I'm trying to all the other 13 series I'm developing, humble brag. It's a lot. It takes a lot out of you, the world build, and naming things and what exactly is where and locations and what the planet or whatever you are on, wherever you are, might look like. What's the theme? This is very, like I said, fantastical, but it's kind of based in realism as far as like, I don't want to call it old China, but like what you might imagine an older version of China to look like.
Yeah,
Like as far as
you
like
definitely
certain
get Eastern
villages.
vibes.
Yeah, and maybe not just China specifically, it could be Japan too. But yeah, you got to consider all of these things when world building, and they just did it really well. It's not like you'd see somebody, like if you saw somebody with like laser eyes, a mechanical skull, and mechanical legs, and they're just better at everybody with everything, and they got like super strength and stuff, and it's like, well, where the hell did this guy come from? He does not look like he belongs in the show. That's because the world building it's done so incredibly well. Like, I have one series where it takes place on an alien planet, but it's very cyberpunk themed. And then another one where it's completely fantastical and there's no technology whatsoever, no modern technology whatsoever. And then there's another where it's the modern world, or another where, I don't know, everything is stupid. I don't know. But
Everything is stupid in this world.
Hey, you see this computer over here? Stupid. You see this guy over here standing in the corner? Stupid. But yeah, that's a testament to how well they're good at world building, and like I said, I appreciate it that much more now as a writer than I did as a child. But
Yeah. Well, I think it's also that you mostly, not that you don't notice good world building, but I don't think you realize how it's done unless you're seeing it done badly, which, like we're saying with Star Wars, like, you only really notice it when something, you're like, I know this, we're supposed to have a suspension of disbelief, but that doesn't feel right. Like,
Right.
it doesn't fit with this world, and you can't always like exactly articulate why, but you're like, that doesn't belong here.
That's like if Star Wars were to add gods or something.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, Rey Skywalker is a descendant of a god, and she's a demigod. It's like, wait, what? This is a sci-fi world.
Well, I mean, they kind of did a little bit of that in Rise of Skywalker.
yeah, I didn't see it, but it was already spoiled for me. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think it also, what plays into it too, like you were saying with, it feels like it's based in like a traditional, like what we think now of like old China.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it too is what basis does it have in the real world? Because as fantastical as you get in some of these sci-fi worlds and things that we have, there's always got to be some basis in Earth.
Right. They still have buildings and vehicles and ways to get around and plumbing.
Yeah, like there was this class I took in high school called Theory of Knowledge, and one of the it was a really good class.
I've never heard of that.
It's an IB class, which like is a thing that more international schools have than US. But anyway, in the class we had like a unit on the whole thing of imagination, and there's kind of this debate around that whole concept among some people where it's like, can you actually ever imagine something completely original? And a lot of people have concluded that no, you like anything you come up with is necessarily
It's based on something. There's nothing new under the sun.
exactly. And you really see that in any fantasy series, because it's almost like if you want to when little kids try to make up a secret language, like they can be talking gibberish and trying to make sounds, but like in all cases
That's still based off of language.
yeah, and it's
yeah.
either their language or another language that they're imitating in some way. Like, you can't just make a totally original sound with your mouth. Like, you have a limitation with that. And even when you're thinking of something, it's like, if you're thinking of something visual, I think it's just like a necessary thing in our brains where you can imagine something that maybe has never looked that way before, but someone's going to point to it and be like, oh, it's like a car with whatever. It's like a tiger, except that it's, pink. And like the creator might push back and be like, no, it's this thing. You've never seen anything like it before. But the person's like, no, you carbon copied a tiger and made it pink.
Yeah.
That's probably not a good example, but something like that. And to bring it back to like world building, I think it's important to consider, like, because of course you're going to be basing certain things in reality, even if you don't want to. Like,
Right.
there are certain touchstones where, like, you could be on a different planet, but if someone walks into a bar, like, it's going to be
still based off of, yeah.
You're not going to completely reimagine a bar for that scene. This has gotten a little bit away from Avatar, but in any case, there's a reason we're not really pointing to anything within the show right now, which is that it's pretty tight. Like, we can't, it's hard to tell where, like, they didn't slip up.
Yeah. So let's move on to my final topic. Not my final note, but my final topic. Anime influence. I don't know if you watch. I don't think you watch a whole lot of anime.
I have a pretty limited knowledge. Does Samurai Jack count?
No.
Okay. Well, I think...
And you'll see why in a second, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I've seen... Just earlier this week, I watched My Neighbor Totoro. That's an anime, right? Like, that counts. Okay.
Anime movie.
I thought so. All of Studio Ghibli, right? Or Ghibli. I don't know which is the right way to say it. I've heard both.
GIF or GIF.
And a couple of years ago, someone showed me Spirited Away. So those are the only two animes I've seen. I feel like I should get into more of it just because it's kind of a presence.
I've not seen either of those, but I've seen Howl's Moving Castle, which was also a Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, that's another one I hear about a lot. I mean, just from the two I've seen and then this show, Studio Ghibli is a lot more creepy. Like, Spirited
Oh,
Away
yeah,
is a
for
fucked
sure.
up movie. Like, there are some really weird things in that movie. I didn't quite get it, but I remember watching it even as, like, I don't know, I think I was like 19 when I saw it, and I was like, oh, like, this is, like, creepy. Like, this is really creepy for a kid's movie.
Yep. Howl's Moving Castle was the same way.
I would have, well, even My Neighbor Totoro is, like, rated G, and I'm sitting down watching it, like, earlier this week, and I'm like, all right, am I in the right state of mind for this? Like, is this too soon before going to bed? Because, like, even when, like, the creatures are being playful, I'm like, yeah, I don't trust you. Like, they're weird.
Yeah, just that shit-eating grin he has is...
Yeah, I'm like, oh.
Reminds me of the Cheshire Cat.
Yes, that, they're like, and the kids are just playing around with them, like, heedless, and I'm like, oh, like, what it, like,
freaked out
no,
by this giant
he's
thing.
giving you drugs, go away.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I feel when I'm watching those movies.
Yeah.
I didn't get any vibes like that. That's a total tangent into my take on anime.
Yeah. So, the style is nothing short of a heavy influence from Eastern animation. I just said Eastern animation to sound fancy. I mean anime from Japan. The style is very much that. In general, the big eyes, the very fine lines, everything. The reactions, like, that's a big thing. Like, the hugely, I guess, expressive reaction to things where it's like,
the
I got
faces.
I got giant eyes and poking lips, and like it's a cartoon, so they're able to do stuff like that. There have been debates on whether this is an actual anime, just because of how much it grabs from that culture. The only difference and the major deciding factor on either side being it wasn't made in Japan, it was made for Western audiences, and it was made by a Western people. English dub, it wasn't voiced by Japanese people. Yeah, I can see both sides of the argument. Like, it's not from Japan, so it's not an anime. Anime comes from Japan. That's the definition of the word. Other people are like, it's taken so much from anime, and it's like an homage to anime, so it is an anime. But I was gonna ask, what are your thoughts? But I'm not sure if you've only seen those two movies.
I felt some, like, blend of Eastern and Western influences there. Again, I'm not hugely, like, I don't know a lot about anime, but I could still tell, like, I did notice specifically at one point, I was like, oh, the writing's Chinese, okay, like, because I was kind of waiting, it didn't show it for a while, and then I was like, oh, they're committing, like, the writing is, it's at least,
even
like,
their names,
yeah,
like, nobody's named Jim or Paul, and that's what confused me as a kid. I was like, wait, nobody's named John, nobody's named Billy, William. They're all, like, names that you wouldn't hear in a classroom when the attendance is being called.
Yeah, at least not in America.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think cued me into, like, the Eastern influences more than anything was, like, the spirit world thing, because, I mean, I don't know a lot about, like, Buddhism, or I want to say Taoism is, like, a religion in China. I might be mixing that up with something else, but I remember feeling like this is really drawing on Eastern religions for this spirit world.
Just Roku's dragon design.
Yeah.
Is an Eastern dragon.
Yeah, and, like, you see in the animation a little bit of both. You probably have a better perspective on this in terms of animated kid shows than I do, but I felt like part of it did feel like a traditional Nickelodeon look, and part of it did feel a little bit more Studio Ghibli. Although the one thing I really noticed in the animation were when they're opening the temple doors and there's that, like, one little bit of 3D.
Yeah,
that is
I don't
not
think they do that
well.
again.
That is.
I don't
not
think they
aged
do
well.
that again. Thank goodness. But no, it did not look good. I didn't realize it was 3D until I rewatched it. I didn't notice as a kid.
Yeah.
But once I saw that, I was like, oh my god, that's 3D. Yeah.
Yeah, this was, like, you saw in a lot of 2D animated movies around this time. Some of the things look like traditional 2D animations, some things look like a Van Gogh painting, and some things look like badly rendered CGI video game characters. It's like it really doesn't look good, but that was kind of where things were at like this time. And this show doesn't look like that, but that was like other stuff that was out at this time that wasn't like full on 3D Pixar look.
Mm-hmm. So some other example shows you might have heard of that have anime influence, and these were just off the top of my head. The Boondocks, which is a show that aired on Adult Swim about a black family. If you just look up the Boondocks, and you'll just see their faces. They have those huge eyes.
Yeah, I've seen the poster for it.
Yeah. Teen Titans is another. The expressionisms and just the way it's animated as well. Black Dynamite. I'd kind of say Black. The last three I'm about to mention are kind of debatable, but like Black Dynamite, Afro Samurai, which was a movie, or it's like several movies or short episodes. I don't know. And Samurai Jack, I'd argue, could be one. It could take from it. It's a different style, but
yeah, I mean, in terms of animation style, I wouldn't call Samurai Jack anime. At least not compared to the anime that I've seen.
That you've seen, I'm pretty sure there's anime out there that look like it.
Yeah, it's just like they had like the really bold outlines for everything's got like a centimeter of black outline around them.
Yeah, but yeah, anime. I can give you a few recommendations if you want. And this is for anybody else that might not know much about anime and might want to, if they want to dig deep into it or take a little dip your foot, dip your toe.
Yeah, it's definitely a blind spot for me, I know.
So off the top, we got Pokemon, we got SpongeBob. No, I'm kidding. Pokemon is anime.
Pokemon is, yeah.
I'm pretty, yeah. So is Digimon. Black Lagoon is my favorite. It's very heavy, and it's set in kind of like the real world. It takes place in Singapore, but it's like a lawless kind of anime, and it's just really good. My Hero Academia.
I've heard that's really good.
Yeah,
People
it's
love
very
that.
generic, but good generic. Dragon Ball Z, it's like the biggest one ever of all time. Naruto. Baccano was alright. I know it's very highly favored, but I just thought it was okay. Like I said before, Black Lagoon. Hunter x Hunter, I'd recommend. Very smart, thought-provoking show. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, obviously. Kuroko's Basketball. It's a basketball anime, but don't let that deter you. Because one of my old friends quoted, well, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he said it was an anime that made him care about a sport he otherwise wouldn't care about. And the characters in it kind of like have superpowers. Like one character can see into the future and break your ankles. Another character doesn't miss his shots. It's pretty hype anime. Mob Psycho 100, one of my top favorites. That, One Punch Man, also both made by the same guy. And I'll stop the list there. If you want a funny one to watch, Prison School is pretty damn funny.
Oh, wait, I think I've heard of that. I think...
Yeah, don't watch that with, like, anyone else.
Yeah, I know. That for some reason that got brought up in my basic sound class.
Yeah.
I know it has a reputation around it.
Don't watch that in public or with anybody.
I probably am just not going to watch it at all.
Very funny, though. And I'm not going to recommend anything I haven't seen. Yeah, those are some good ones. I don't know, what's your, like, genre? What's a good genre you go to normally for, like, say movies, because that's what we're about here, that and TV shows.
I try to not, I mean, I grew up liking sci-fi, fantasy, action stuff, but I've kind of come to like most genres. I'm not going to say all, but I don't know that genre's a good indicator for...
What's your favorite?
I don't really have an answer for that.
Damn it, Evan!
Yeah, I don't. I'm sorry. Actually, no, I'm not sorry about that. I like no longer. I think not having a favorite genre anymore is good for me.
So, top two I recommend, Black Lagoon or Mob Psycho.
Okay.
I'm trying to pick non-generic ones. They're both non-anime Actually, it might be good if you start off with something that's generic so you understand what the difference is between the following shows you watch. Like shonen is one of the genres of anime where it's like there's a hero and he's naive and he's off to do this one thing, and there's people that help him along the way, and there's antagonists that might join him in the journey and stuff like that. So that's like Dragon Ball Z. I'd recommend for that. It's like the granddaddy of all shonen.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of that one. I don't really know much about it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah. But like I said, if you like it, Black Lagoon is like a crime one. I'd really highly recommend that. Or if you want something supernatural, go for Mob Psycho, because that's about psychics.
Okay.
So, one other thing I wanted to mention, when I rewatched it, and it was earlier today, the last scene with the giant water koi fish, it was like I said, now after rewatching it as an adult, with the music and everything involved in that scene, it seemed biblical. And it reminded me of a certain scene from The Prince of Egypt, that DreamWorks movie. I really like. I love that movie. Where God came down and took the life of anyone who didn't have the blood of a lamb across their door. And instead of taking the lives of those people, it was taking the lives of the Fire Nation soldiers. But with Aang having no preface, like nobody mentioned about him being able to become a giant water spirit fish. Like that coming out of nowhere, and then just the music and the lighting from it, that the world was still gray from the
black and
moon
white
spirit
thing.
dying, but then that lighting up everything in the water tribe, the blue tint, and it not saying anything and it just slashing away at all the Fire Nation soldiers. It was something biblical about that, like seeing such a thing that you have not seen in the show yet. That was pretty damn cool.
I haven't seen Prince of Egypt in like 12 years or something. I used to watch it a lot as a kid, but
Same.
I'm surprised that's the scene you're paralleling. I'd probably have to go back and watch both the Avatar scene and the Prince of Egypt scene, and maybe I'd see the parallel. I would have thought if you were going to compare to Prince of Egypt, it would either be the plagues or the Red Sea.
The plague was kind of attacking. The plague was attacking without. Is it without prejudice? Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I don't know,
it
because
wasn't
it is
targeting.
it is
It was just
targeting
attacking
the Egyptians. So
yeah, but it was just targeting
Maybe, I don't know.
It didn't matter if they did something specific.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was just killing all the Egyptians. But this was. I chose that scene because it was specifically he was going after the Fire Nation. If it was more like the plague, it would have just been him killing everybody that it saw. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Shout outs to that finale. Compared to the other seasons, I didn't like it as much, but now, rewatching this show, I'm just appreciating it more as a whole, so I appreciate that scene too.
yeah, I've been wondering since watching it if my appreciation of the last 2-3 episodes is lessened because I knew what happened from the movie. Because I think I probably would have appreciated a lot more and been like a lot more excited for that whole thing, the whole Fire Nation attack and all of it, like if I hadn't already known basically what was going to happen. So in that sense, I'm hopeful that, and from what you're saying, it sounds like it's safe to be hopeful about this, like for what's coming in the next 2 season finales. I think they can deliver something really cool.
Yeah. So let's get to our last point here. What are your predictions for season 2?
I don't know if this is exactly a hard prediction, but Aang saving Zuko at the end, that is going to come back into play somehow.
Oh.
That can't be an isolated thing, I think. What Zuko is going to do, I don't know. Of course, his sister is going to become a major player. I'm hoping she's going to be different in her pursuit of Aang than Zuko was. And yeah, I think the show is good enough that it will deliver on that. They seem They seem different enough. Aside from that, I mean, of course he's going to be learning earthbending. Is he done with waterbending? Like, is he a full waterbender yet?
No. No.
Okay. I didn't think so, but I was like, it's the end of book 1. Are we supposed to think that he is?
Not even Katara is done, like, really. But who do you think's gonna teach him earthbending, though, Evan? Because ain't nobody they know besides King Boomy can bend earth. Who's gonna teach him?
I mean, they did run into some other ones, but I mean, who am I supposed to guess? Like, I'm guessing they haven't come up yet.
Appa is the real Avatar, Evan. You see the tattoo? He's just been holding back.
Hey.
He's been letting Aang.
I wouldn't be totally there for that twist, but I would be there somewhat for that twist.
Appa is the last airbender. So we spent a hell of a lot of time on this episode, but season 2 is next. It's not the next episode, but it'll be
soon.
It's coming. Yeah.
I'll be able to finish season 2 relatively quickly, I think.
You're gonna want to.
I already do. I've been having to wait for 2 weeks to watch it because we've had to do this show.
Just start after this.
Yeah, I mean, I probably won't immediately after, but tonight I probably could.
No, just as soon as you hit end record, just
skip dinner.
Leave the call, skip dinner, just go straight to Netflix.
All right. I mean,
you can do the boilerplate stuff.
Yeah, upcoming episodes, of course, ATLA Season 2, Last Airbender Season 2. We're also going to do Season 3 eventually. And then also our next episode, we're going to round out the Pirates of the Caribbean series and do At World's End. Also, we have a video essay on A Star is Born that I'm making that will be up on our Interior Analysis YouTube channel. Yeah, hopefully it'll be out by the time we get this out. If it is, there will be a link in the show notes. And we are going to keep doing some of these. I have a couple planned. And shout out to Carla for originally having us do A Star is Born, because that's why I'm doing that video essay. Otherwise, like us on Facebook, rate and review on iTunes, send comments, questions, suggestions, requests to intanalysis18@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at intanalysis18. You can follow me on Twitter at Davos Watson. And where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at Jelani T. Kelly. Find me on Instagram if you want. I post pictures of the characters I've been drawing there at Based Phoenix. And I'm also streaming my writing stuff and games now at J Based Phoenix on Twitch. And buy my book. My book's been out for some time. It'll be 90 days by the end of this month. But I'm getting the revenue from that.
Yep.
It's finally coming into my account. So make sure you spend money on the book.
Yeah, Descendant Awakening, first of many things to come.
The Amazon store, I'm editing a second book right now as I speak. And there's a children's version of that coming soon as well. I'm really just waiting on the pictures for anything. But yeah, if you like sci-fi superhero stuff, arguably more epic than the Avatar because it goes beyond just one world.
Definitely bigger in scale. I can attest to that much.
Yeah,
I don't know about anything else you've done, but
for sure. And it's only the first book, y'all. There's much more to come. Book plug over. Go ahead and buy that.
Yeah. So until next time, yip.
Oh God.
I've been saying that the whole show, dude. Literally, anytime anyone says yip, I'm like, yip, yes! Go Alpha.
All right.
Team Alpha. All right, see you guys.